everyone, it's Penny here from Farmyard Wellness. Now today, for this video, I want to introduce to you my housemate, Samantha. Now Samantha has had a very interesting life. She initially came from...
I call it more fucked up.
Well, but, that's because she came from America. Say no more, right?
Okay.
So, she was born, or you were born, I should say, I do apologise, in Alton, Illinois.
No, I was born in Illinois because maybe I was born at Alton Hospital, I don't know, but I was born in Illinois. Let's just say that way. And then they took me home to Brighton, Illinois.
Right. Now, did you, as a child, grow up just in an ordinary house, or did you have land around you? Or?
No, the house that I grew up in looked like a shack.
Was it a shotgun shack?
It was not a chic shack at all. It was a shack, and I have no ideas how my mother and father had 4 children, one after another, and I can't remember. I can't really remember the house, but I do know that it was very small and it had wooden floors, and I can remember because I left there when I was not quite 6, and my mother by then had 4 children, and I can remember my brother and I going out in the back, and it was tall grass. And now my brother I'm the oldest of 4, and I can remember being about, like I said, I was probably around 5, and my brother and my mother and my father both smoked like chimneys, and my brother and I went out in back of this house shack, and we were pretending. We wrote up a newspaper, and we pretended to smoke, and ended up burning the backyard and the back of the house down. Needless to say, whatever. And it was the kind of environment where when you played, we'd go out into the street, and there were like these drains, water drains. And one time I can remember that we saw a dog in one of the drains, and there was an adult who came and got us out of the drains because the dog had rabies.
Oh.
So that was the kind of Brighton life that I had as a child. And I can remember my mother taking my brother and I, and she had a baby in arms, and we were on the train, and we were going to go because she was going to somehow show us off to her mother and her father. And we had these, and I can vaguely remember they must have been sailor suits, because like I said, my mother had dressed us up, and my brother and I, while we were on the train going into Godfrey, Illinois, we just took our buttons and just busted them. So we were just really good kids. We were not a well-behaved family.
Oh
my mother
God.
had no. My mother had 4 kids, one after another, and my mother never really should have had kids. She was not a good mother. Now that will give you where I grew up at. And we were the type of family. Now my father, he went off to work every day. And I will say this about my mother. My mother was very, very talented. My mother never, ever should have gotten married young. My mother could play the piano, and I can remember that she used to make some extra money for the family. She used to go to the local bars and play honky-tonk piano. And one time, they had a New Year's Eve party when all the kids were at one house, and some of the parents were at another house. And I can't really remember anything else other than after that party, we were kind of like, nobody ever came to visit us ever again. I think we were considered basically in town as probably one step above white trash. We weren't really a very nice family.
Hillbillies play honky-tonk music, don't they?
Right.
So perhaps we're talking about.
But my mother
hillbillies.
actually one time, now I heard this was a rumor,
Yeah.
but I heard that my mother actually went over to St. Louis and played with the great Ahmad Jamal.
Oh, really?
Now I heard that I don't know whether that's a rumor or not, but my mother was very, very good. She was very talented. My mother
Yeah,
was.
she must have
She
been.
was not a good mother, but she was quite talented and
No,
very
but
creative.
she probably should have just been a musician.
Yeah, my mother should not have gotten. I was born in the back seat of the car,
Oh, God.
so that's kind of
Hey,
how my
so
life
was my
started.
sister, truly.
Oh, okay. Oh, we've got good family backgrounds.
Yes.
Yes. Now, also, I want to add this about my father. This
Yeah.
has always amazed me about my father. My father, when he was a child, he got an infection in his leg, and he had a wooden leg. And I've always wondered, how in the hell did he have 7 kids through his life? But he must have. With one leg, you can still do it.
But where was it?
Huh? It was cut off up below, over the knee, and he had a wooden leg.
So just above the knee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
slightly above the,
Yeah.
slightly above the,
Yeah. Like a pirate.
like a pirate. But he wasn't. He was a good dad.
Yeah.
It was Mom that was mucked up. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so that goes with my Brighton experience.
And considering you were talking to Farmyard Wellness, what animals did you have?
None.
Oh, God, that's terrible.
Mother was not an animal person.
Oh, that's
Not
sad.
an animal person.
Oh,
But my mother and my father got divorced just before I was turning 6. And I was farmed out to my father's parents out in Godfrey, Illinois. And they were farmers, and they had animals.
oh yeah.
You know, horses, I can remember. And my grandfather, they were just good, solid old farm people. As a matter of fact, when I was doing some history on them, that side of the family apparently came from very good stock. And I can remember the house as being an absolutely gorgeous, big, beautiful, beautiful 2-story farmhouse.
One of the nice farmhouses.
With like the porch was 3/4
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
And I can also remember that when I was out there, we still used an outdoor toilet. And there was a commode put under the bed at night.
Yeah.
And because, like I said, I wasn't quite 6, I was probably about 5.5. And my father lived there at the time because he was divorced. And you know, and there were animals there. There were dogs and cats. And,
So did you go out and play outside a lot?
oh yeah, it was a big. They had this beautiful big front yard, and you know, and they'd go and sit under the big elm trees or the oak trees or whatever they were, and you know, and we'd play. You know, I'd go and they had crickets, and of course they had the crickets that would have just you know, their skin, and you'd pick them off of the trees and all
Oh.
that. And I can remember my grandfather when he'd come in from because that was still when he had horses drawing
Yeah.
the machinery,
Plows and
and
stuff.
the plows and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he'd come back and he'd put me on top of the horse and on all that kind of stuff. And I can remember there was a creek in back of the house, and he'd go shooting rabbits and bring back a rabbit for dinner, that sort of thing. And so, you know, that was a good life. And like the house, there was also a house on the property that there was another, and I want to think that it was one of my father's brothers and his wife. They lived on the, you know, it was like probably 1/4 of an acre away. They had a house there. So, and my grandfather and grandmother, they were just ordinary people, you know, like grandma stayed in the house, and you know, that was where you had irons that you'd have to heat up and iron, and you know, and there was no TV at that time, no phones.
Now, are you going to say what you were talking about?
We're going to talk, yeah. We're going to talk way back when. I was born in 1939, so that makes me 84 now. So that was, and you know, like I said, that was pre-indoor toilets and pre-indoor electricity. You know, I mean, I
That
grew
was
up in
long
pre-phones.
long before those things.
Oh, long before those
Yeah,
things.
because we had an outdoor toilet
Oh,
when I
really?
was a kid. Yeah.
Oh, how old were you?
I think we had that till I was about probably 8.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Well, of course, Australia was always behind the United States at that period in life.
Me.
They're getting caught up now, but they were way behind in that period back then. That's a fact.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Okay. We had indoor plumbing first.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
Very true.
Yep.
True. So, did you go to school at the same?
I started
From when you were-
started school when I was living at my father's parents' house, my grandparents.
Right.
And I can remember, and they had a lane named after themselves. And I can remember walking up the lane to the little one-room schoolhouse,
Mm-hmm.
and that was where I entered first grade.
Mm-hmm.
And it was literally a one-room schoolhouse,
Yeah.
almost at the end of the lane. And it was probably, for a little kid, it was probably a 20-minute walk. And sometimes people would come by, either in their little cars or whatever, and they'd give me a lift because they knew me, because it was a very small community then. And I can remember in the wintertime, because it snows, oh God, walking in the snow up to that damn school. Oh, it was cold. And the school wasn't much warmer, but that's where I entered first grade. And my great memory about first grade was that I am probably a natural left-handed writer, but because they didn't believe in it that days, every time they'd see me start to use my left hand to write, I'd get a whack by the ruler.
Yeah.
So to this day, I write with the right hand, but I bat and do a lot of things with my left hand. when I golf, bat.
Well, that's quite.
Yeah.
Pardon the pun,
But that was my
quite
big
handy.
that's my big remembrance from my first grade.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But how many you would have stayed at that school?
I would have stayed at that school until I was probably beginning to start the second grade.
Yeah.
And at that time, and then what happened was I believe my father had probably remarried by then, but I was sent back because my mother, you see, she was sent to a mental institution. That's why the family, the kids were farmed out. Like 3 of my brothers and sisters went to her parents, and I went to my father's parents. I was kind of the black sheep. You know, like I said, I was born not, like all of a sudden, my father was 22 and my mother was 20. And when I was born, and it was like, oh, she's pregnant. So, I was kind of the one that created all the problems in the family. To this day, I think that.
Yeah.
But my mother had been sent to a mental institution at one point. That's why the family was broken up. And then when my mother got out, then the family, they put all the kids back with her. And so that's why I got back to Mom when I was almost 7. Yeah, 7.
So did you go to the same school still?
No, because
Too far away.
I moved back, I think, and here again, it's a little sketchy, but I think this is pretty correct. By then, my mother had hooked up with some guy. I think she'd married him, but we were in Wood River, Illinois. And Wood River, Illinois is down the road from Alton. And it's they have all these oil refineries. Oh, the town just stunk.
Oh.
And
What those big things
those
that go up
big,
and down.
big tanks of oil, and it was a refinery town. And because I guess he was a stepfather at the time, and so we lived in Wood River, Illinois, where I was I left when I was taken out of school as I was entering second grade, and then put into Wood River. And I just don't remember that time in life. I do not remember the school at all. I know I was there during the second, third, maybe the fourth grade. And it was not a happy time because my mother was a very angry person. She was a very abusive woman. And even at that age, I'd run away, and they'd find me under, the police would find me under houses, I'd just run away all the time because my mom was just very, very abusive. And and among the siblings, we weren't loving towards each other. Like my brother and I, it was a constant battle. My sister, who was the third born, she was the so-called angel of the family. And then there was Michael, the youngest, and he was just kind of the lost child. And, and like, I'll tell you how my mother was. My mother, we were not a religious family, but my mother, finding out about a summer camp that she could send her kids off to, she forced us to go to this church where Sunday school, and you had to learn, I don't even know what it was, but you had to learn a psalm or a saying once a week. And then if you could put together all these sayings for like 10 weeks in a row or something, they'd send you off to this damn religious camp. And it was horrible. That was how my mother got rid of us. And we had to learn these damn things. But my mother never attended church, not until later in life.
Was that during the holidays?
No, she'd just send us to the church to learn these phrases.
The camp on it.
Oh, the camp, it was like a summer camp, I don't know, 6 weeks or something.
They got rid of you for
it
school
was,
holidays.
and here again, I don't remember a lot of it because I can remember just always running away from the classes and just not really adhering to camp standards.
No, I can imagine.
No, I don't remember a lot about it, but yeah.
And then after that, you are in secondary school.
Well, they consider it, the first through the it was grade school. First grades 1 through 5 is considered grade school.
Right.
And then here we were my stepfather was working at the refinery, and I think my mother had some kind of jobs. I don't know what they were, but I like I said, I really don't remember a lot of that time, except I can remember that one of my jobs that I had, let me see, was it at that time? No, it was a little later in life, I believe. Let me see, I'm trying to think now. Was it, when did it say that I was a paper girl? At what town? Because I had to write this out. I had to dredge up these memories.
September 1951.
What town was I in?
Wood.
Yes, that's right. In Wood River, what happened was and I was quite young then, and I was a paper girl. But also my brother was a paper boy. And what was great about the paper, yes, now this is all coming back like a bad dream.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I was this paper girl, and if you got your money in on, if you got all your money in on time on a Saturday, you'd get like an extra 20 cents.
Mm.
And I'd go down to the bank on Monday and put my little $1.50 or $2 or whatever it was in, because the papers back then were very cheap, like 10 cents.
Yeah,
like maybe somebody got 50, they owed me 50 cents a week.
Yeah.
And I can remember, and I used to get tips because I was a good little paper girl. Mm. I'd hit their porch.
Yeah.
Now, where's my brother? Being the jerk that he was, my brother would just be on his bike and he'd just throw the papers anywhere. They'd land. And my mother forced me to share some of my money with him.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, but then there's a real kicker to this. Now, for some reason, my money was in a savings account. Now, you have to understand at the time, probably it was all of, maybe it was $25 or $30 by the time. No, it was probably more than that because I was a paper girl for, many months. And my grandfather, and he's a whole new story. I'll tell you about that later. My grandfather died, and my grandfather had died. Now he was a very bad man, but anyway, my mother, I went to the bank to get my money out to buy a dress for my grandfather's funeral, and there was no money. My mother, apparently, I would put the money in, say on a Monday, and my mother would go down on Tuesday and get the money out.
For herself to spend.
Yes.
Oh.
So my mother would steal from me.
Oh.
Oh yes. Needless to say, I have money issues to this day.
Yeah.
I save no money.
No.
I spend. And I can remember going to that funeral, and I refused to go. And like I said, I'll share that story maybe in a next episode as to why I wouldn't go.
Yeah.
But oh yes, that was Wood River. After Wood River, we then now I do not know what kind of job my fat stepfather had. Him and my mother were very fat. But we moved to a town called Elsa, Illinois. Elsa, Illinois is known as, what it has attached to it is a Principia College, which is a college that is ran by the Christian Scientist. And Elsa itself is a very gorgeous old town on the Mississippi River, as is most of the little towns around there. But it was a very gorgeous little town. It had all these beautiful stone houses, and it wasn't large. I mean, when I was there, if there were 500, 600 people living in the town, it was a lot. And, there wasn't anything like a drugstore, or I think there was probably someplace where you could go and buy bread and butter, but it wasn't even a tourist town there. And all I know is that the family lived in this stone house, and attached to the stone house was an old cooler type house, a cooler building, and it had a downstairs and an upstairs. And my sister and I, we shared that. And whereas the brothers were inside the house. And here again, I don't really remember I don't remember a lot about the house. Like, all I know is it was a stone house and it was quite attractive. I do remember with fondness, though, Elsa, Illinois, because the people around Elsa, they were very, very kind to me. And very kind. I think that because my mother, they had a home in Elsa where people, like visiting professors and dignitaries of the Christian Science Church, would come because they'd go up and visit the college. And my mother worked there. She was, I think she was a cook. And so the people in Elsa, most of them a lot of the people that lived there were Christian Scientists, and they took pity on us. That was what it was. They treated, but I can remember with fondness in that, they used to give me little odd jobs, like maybe to go up and clean a house, or over the holidays, like at Christmas time or Easter, they'd say, well, go up to the college, because a lot of the professors lived on the grounds, and I would help set the tables up and, get the house ready for their guest. And I always ate with the family. I wasn't treated like a servant. I was invited in. So I remember Elsa very well. Also, the first year that I lived in Elsa, I was very young, and there used to be a farm, a vegetable and fruit farm at the top of this hill, because to get to Elsa, you had to come down a very steep hill. And at the top of the hill, there was this vegetable and berry farm. And a bunch of us kids would go up in the summertime on our bikes, and we'd pick berries. And you'd get a little bit of money per berry picking. And of course, we'd eat more berries than we picked. But then the big thrill was you'd ride your bike and you'd come down the hill, and it was always a thrill to see who could go furthest down the hill. I mean, oh, we were very, very adventuresome in Elsa, Illinois. I mean, it was like, that was the big deal. But like I said, I remembered Elsa with fondness. And down from Elsa, if you walked up the railroad tracks, and you walked up then, there was this summer place called Chautauqua, and it was a summer resort. And it was a summer resort for kind of high-end people. Definitely, you had to be upper middle class to be there. And they all had these summer houses there. And there was this one place, it was like a very small hotel, but every Sunday, it was very famous for that community that they'd have these great chicken dinners. And these people that owned this little restaurant and it was a tiny, tiny, tiny hotel. They brought up this old woman from the South who cooked this chicken. And it was very famous. It was almost like fricasseed chicken, they called it. And that was the only meal you got. You had chicken with gravy and, I don't know, carrots or whatever. It's the only meal. There was no sides, no nothing. But people would come from miles around on Sundays for this meal. And one of the summer jobs that I had was working at Chautauqua. And I was able to live up there because they had us kids that we all shared like a couple of rooms upstairs. And like we would, make up the beds of the hotels. But our main job was to serve these Sunday meals. And this Chautauqua, it was great because it had a beautiful swimming pool. And I was invited to go down to the pool. And one of the great things was at the pool, they had a little, it wasn't a cafe, it was an ice cream, where they'd make ice cream sodas and all that. So a bunch of the kids from Chautauqua we'd break into the pool house after hours and eat the ice cream and all that.
Break into it?
Yeah, of course. That's what you did.
Oh.
and I mean, these were these well-meaning kids from well-meaning families, and I used to hang with them. Now, I was a very homely-looking girl, so I was nobody's girlfriend there then. And but I remember, and they used to have these. They had a movie theater that was outdoors, and they'd have movies. I think a couple of nights a week, and of course, we'd run around and all that. But in that town, it was really funny. Even in Chautauqua, there used to be a lot of Jewish people coming over from St. Louis. They had homes there, and even in Chautauqua, you had class distinction because on one side of Chautauqua, you had these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful summer homes, and I never went there because that was the real wealthy people. But the rest of Chautauqua was probably upper middle income people. And they had these beautiful summer cottages. And that was the group that I hung around with. And my brother, he worked doing dishes. And I served these plates of chicken. And my brother and I, since we didn't get along, I'd take the dishes because I had to put them through a slot. And I'd throw the dishes at him. My brother and I didn't get along. We fought. We were not good friends. My brother was not a nice person. But anyway, I worked there 2 summers at Chautauqua.
Oh, that's nice.
And yeah, and here again, it was lovely because I was able to get out of my home environment.
Yes.
Because my mother was just so neurotic and violent and.
And what age were you around then?
I was probably
Second year high school?
No. I wasn't even in high school yet.
Oh.
I was probably in 7th and 8th grade, maybe 9th grade.
Yeah.
I was very young. It was child labor back then, which was very acceptable.
But it would have been a nice place to live, though.
Elsa I have very fond memories of Elsa, but like I said, my mother was a very violent person, and there were a couple of very bad things that happened to me because of my mother that was there. She was I like my sister and I didn't get along. We lived in this room, and my sister was the angel of the family, and I was the black sheep and the troublemaker. And I lived in the kind of family that when I was living in Wood River, apparently I had told my brothers.
We're going to be doing this once a week, putting out a once a week video, and we're going to follow her life along, because she started off in America and she's been to so many places, and she's had a very interesting life. So we're just going to do it week by week by week, and we're going to
get me here to Australia,
and until she gets here to Koo Wee Rup.
Yes, Koo Wee Rup. Who would have thought?
I mean, what a change.
Oh, yes. I feel like I'm living in one step above a shack. Let me say that. Oh, maybe 2 steps.
Oh,
maybe a little bit more.
It's
an old farmhouse.
Yes, it is an old farm. It's very old. It's the original farmhouse.
The original farmhouse. And I live in the add-on that has no insulation.
Yes. She lives in the veranda that's been built in.
It's been, yes. Oh, goodness.
And I have a proper bedroom.
Yes, with an ensuite, no less.
Yes, that's right. But, so, if you've enjoyed this video, we'd love it if you liked and subscribed. And I'm sure Samantha would be very happy to answer any questions you may have. Not necessarily about what she spoke of today, but just, travel in general and, whatever.
Sure.
You'd love that, wouldn't you, Samantha?
Of course I would.
Yes.
I love being the center of attention.
She truly does. She truly does. She's not exaggerating.
I'm not shy.
No. All right, so we'll see you with another Samantha the housemate video.
Okay.
Next week. Bye for now.
Bye.